I can't make it any bigger. That.
Yes. We'll see. They're gonna do the same thing they did the last details. Oh, you want to? Yeah, we're fine. Years ago, that was one of the things that, the bills were one thing. Years ago, the 4 years. They got to do a Trump because they get the businessmen. I mean, that's still banking. What's that? Huge. But the band is on 856, so at the end of the day, it worked out. Okay, plus I love the story.
I was going to check here.
Let me know.
Terry, hey, say hello.
Oh, Terry?
Yes. We came in with a rough draft.
Did you recently?
Sitting back and forth on homework, but he's polished.
So certainly put a reference in comments, and I contacted him, he said that's clear.
Are you doing so?
Clear sky. I think somebody said something. Yeah, I'm gonna have that agreement with.
Good, how are you?
I don't know why. The other things I saw. Yeah, I think he's got something.
You mentioned not getting up.
You've been late. All right. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Madison County Board of Commissioners public hearing, February 24th, 2025 at 5:03 p.m. We will now call this meeting to order. This public hearing is our third and final public hearing on House Bill 581 homestead exemptions. I'm going to ask before we start, is there anybody, is this their first meeting that has not seen the slideshow? And I take it everybody saw it so far? Everybody in the room? All right, because Gary Capillere, our Deputy Chief Appraiser is here, and he could go through the slideshow again, or if there's particular slideshows that you would like to see and him to go back over for you, maybe you either didn't understand something he said and or would like for him to elaborate more. We have 1 full hour for questions and comments on 581, so we'd like to take that opportunity for anybody's questions on that. So is everybody comfortable? Would you like to see the slideshow again, or would you just like to ask questions, or would you like for him to pull up slideshows individually, like certain ones? I'm open for suggestions from the room.
Can you do a quick summary?
Sure. Fair enough.
Yeah, like the pros and the cons.
Compromise.
All right.
Anybody, don't feel bashful if you want to see the whole thing.
Yeah, we have a total hour for us, so we're good. I will read you, I don't know on your slideshow if you have the pros and cons list, Gary.
It's not really pros and cons because I'm not recommending one way or another. It's just a statement of what's in it and the possible impacts to the county.
Okay.
I wouldn't really call it a pros and cons. It can be taken that way for sure,
I think
but
he's referring to that.
no, that's not included.
Okay. Go ahead. You're such a pro, we're just gonna let you do it one more time. He has done a good job, ladies and gentlemen.
So, this House bill, and again, I want to thank the Board of Commissioners. I haven't spoken with any of them, so I don't know what their decisions are at this time, which way they're leaning. This HB 581, when it went through the legislation, it automatically opted 159 counties in the state and all the subsequent taxing authorities for the municipalities in. So right now, the county is in. This would be in order to opt out. This is really just to, the House bill went into effect in January, and we weren't able to start holding meetings on it, start discussing it until January. The opt-out time period is March 1st. Currently, there's a new House bill that's being introduced to extend it to the 31st, but it hasn't gone through the Senate yet. I believe it's gone through the House, but not the Senate. So because of the strict time frame, the taxing authorities had to set up the opt-out meetings in case they decided to opt out. It wasn't their decision that they've already made up for opting out. I just want to thank them they asked us to do this presentation so that they could better understand the House bill, the citizens could better understand it, and they would have an idea on what the impact to the digest would be. With that said, some of the things that are in place with this House bill that have nothing to do with whether the county or any of the taxing authorities decide to opt out, these are going to stay in effect regardless. It removes the estimated tax bill from the annual assessment notice. You will still receive your annual assessment notice. However, the estimated tax box on there will no longer be on it. It'll be replaced with a millage rate rollback, which tells you what each of the taxing authorities have to roll their millage rate back in order to not tax you additionally compared to the previous year. To be honest, the estimated tax bill, the estimated tax portion on the assessment notices was never accurate to begin with. It was always based off the previous year's millage rate. None of the taxing authorities have their millage rate set at the time when the notices go out, so it's always just an estimate. It's never correct unless all the taxing authorities leave their millage rate exactly the same. So it caused a lot of confusion, and that was the initial reason for the legislation to create this bill, and then a bunch of other stuff got added to it. This House bill also removes the one-year sales hold on property values. It used to be if you purchased a property for $200,000 and we had $205 on it, you got a one-year sales hold at the $200,000. This bill removes that. It also made it to where if you appeal your property and it goes to the Board of Equalization, you no longer receive a 3-year hold on it just for showing up. You have to actually get a reduction from that board in order to receive a 3-year hold. So if the Board of Equalization decides to stay with the appraiser's value and doesn't take the taxpayer's value, it won't be a 3-year hold. It'll just stay at the appraiser's value, and then you can just reappeal the following year. It also codified that the Board of Assessors must reappraise property every 3 years, and it gave the Board of Assessors authority to appeal the state's sales ratio.
I'm sorry, what was it before?
What was what before?
Those last 2 points. Did you have to do it every year, every 10 years? Like reappraise the property?
It was suggested that it be done every 3 years, but this made it much more.
That's a lot, it's in the law.
Yeah, it's not a suggestion anymore.
Okay.
It's pretty difficult for a lot of the assessors, Board of Assessors, to meet that criteria, because for every appraiser, you're supposed to only have the
3,000.
3,000 parcels for every appraiser. So a lot of Board of Assessors, a lot of counties don't have enough appraisers for the parcel count in order to review property every 3 years. But our county has recently added additional appraisers, so that is something that's going to be put into effect.
And did you not have the authority to appeal the ratio before?
Before, it was only the Board of Commissioners could and the Board of Education could. The Board of Assessors shouldn't be able to, which didn't make a whole lot of sense. So potential outcomes of opting out, it allows for local control over tax policies. It maintains flexibility for future boards, because if you decide to opt in, this is a lifelong thing. You can't opt out in the future. Financial impact is the ability to maintain a lower millage rate for the taxing authorities. It also provides greater long-term fiscal stability and sustainability at a local level. And it maintains the ability to respond to local needs and crises. And still allows for local ability to respond to rising property values through creating local homesteads. Locally, we could create a homestead that's very similar to this, that would be controlled at a local level rather than relying on state.
Is such a thing proposed, or are you just talking about it?
I'm gonna let the Board of Commissioners address that.
What was that question? I'm
Local
sorry.
exceptions, if you'll have to discuss any local exceptions.
Yes,
The one
ma'am.
being proposed.
Yes, ma'am, and I'll do that at the end. I'll let you know.
So the potential outcomes for staying in property values would be frozen and can only increase by the consumer price index, the rate of inflation, or from any substantial changes to the property, such as if you make an addition to your dwelling. Floating homestead is also in addition to any local homesteads. Whether the county decides to opt out or not, it won't change any of the local homesteads that you're already receiving. It also could make the local taxing authorities more dependent on state or federal funding to offset revenue losses. As of now, there's no limit to the amount of acreage included on the homestead parcel. HB 92, the one that it just passed through the House, it hasn't passed through the Senate yet, is actually reducing that to 5 acres for the homestead parcel. It also made some additional changes to the time frame on when you can apply for the exemption.
I'm sorry, that one passed the House 173 to 1.
It just hasn't gone to the Senate yet.
Tuesday of last week.
Yes, last week.
Compounded value plus consumer price index increases and millage rate increases will raise your taxes. Agricultural properties that are in conservation could receive a 3% CUBA increase, which is mandated by the state, in addition to the consumer price index increase, as well as local millage rate increases. It would result in millage increases each year, which would deter any commercial or industrial growth in the future from counties who have opted into the floating homestead. So once owners sell their homes, property taxes would be calculated according to the property's actual value, meaning that new homeowners would not see any discounts when they buy the home. Landlords also would qualify for the exemption. So what this could cause is properties directly adjoining one another could vary wildly in assessed taxable value. You could have two houses that are both fair market value wise, they're the same square footage and stuff. One property owner opted in at the initial start and is froze at $200,000. Well, now the values are up to $400,000, and a new owner buys this other one, so he's locked into $400,000. This one's locked into $200,000. They have the same house, but they're paying vastly different prices. This new floating homestead exemption is in addition to the current homestead exemption I said before. This won't replace any of your current local ones. Taxes don't disappear, they're just shifted. So basically, it would be shifted to non-homesteaded properties such as commercial, agricultural, industrial, or non-homesteaded residential, such as rental properties. It's important to remember that property taxes usually fund a significant part of local budgets, county and school districts, and when you start capping that revenue, the revenue has to come from somewhere else. This is just a brief statement. This is how the amendment appeared on the ballot. Next one. This is the impact on the millage rate. The first row for 2021, that $1 billion is the total value for all homestead properties. The next column over, the 1043, that's the total value plus, for this purpose, we use 3% for the CPI. We don't know that that's what it's going to be. That's just what they told us to use in order to calculate the impact study. So what I did in the second column is, the top number is the previous year's number plus 3% for the CPI, and then the 118 million, that is all the new homestead, the value for all the new homesteads that apply in the year 2022. The total homestead value underneath that, the 1.162, that is just both of those numbers added together. The row below that, I'm going to get into that in a minute. That's part of House Bill 808. That's the personal property exemption loss. I'm going to discuss that in a future slide. Basically, they increased the exemption amount on personal property, such as businesses and boats, from, it used to be anything under $7,500 was exempt from taxes. Now it's $20,000. So this is the estimated loss, because when figuring out how it's going to impact the millage rate, I also wanted to include that so that the board knew you're also going to have to deal with House Bill 808, and you're going to incur some loss. For the county, $17,000 for 22 is the estimated personal property loss. That's not a whole lot. For some of the municipalities, it might be a bigger portion of their budget. The average homesteaded loss, that's the average loss per parcel with homestead. The revenue loss is the total loss in revenue that the county would receive for that year from the homestead. And then the estimated mill to recoup is what the county, because I ran these figures just on county figures, that's what the county would have to raise their millage rate in order to recoup that $935,000 loss. Then we see it goes to 1.8 and then 2.5. Those are compounding. So for a 3-year time frame, you're looking at roughly almost a $5 million increase.
Yeah.
So it's not 2.5 in the third year, it's almost 5 in the third year.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
Do you not take into account in there new houses that are being built and therefore new people who are going to be paying?
I didn't in this study because there's not really a good way to know what's going to be built in 25, 26. These are taking into account new houses that were built and owner occupied, where they applied for homestead. Mm-hmm. It's not really taking into account maybe a new rental property that was added. But these are taking into account new houses that were built in 22 and they applied for homestead.
It also includes your calculation for houses that were sold during that time as well.
Sold as well, yes, sir.
So just for clarity, ma'am, the Department of Revenue asked us to use the previous 3 years because that was the only factual data we had. We could not look forward. But if we use the factual data of new homes being built or homes being sold, we should have roughly the same idea in the end, unless there's just a massive housing boom, which would offset it. We did not see that in the past 3 years, so we're really not expecting that in the future 3 years. And what was your name and address for the record, ma'am? We have to log it down.
Catalina, go back.
Catalina, can you spell your last name?
Catalina,
I can't hear.
KOBAC,
KOBAC.
Catalina.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this is House Bill 808. This was also passed around the same time. This is where it increases the personal property exemption from $7,500 to $20,000. This is the impact for House Bill 808. Again, for the county, you can see it doesn't equate to a whole lot. In 22, the total value for all personal property under $20,000 was $7.5 million. In order to calculate how much them increasing the exemption amount was going to affect the county, I used the old $7,500 exemption, which the total value was $3.5 million. So the difference between that is almost $4 million. At a $4 million difference in actual revenue loss, it comes out to a little under $18,000 for 22. This is the list of this is the revenue that the Board of Commissioners collected off of personal property, real property, real and personal property. This isn't their total budget for those years. There's going to be a lot of budget that's collected from building permits, from court fees, that sort of thing. But as you can see, this does show a steady, where they have rolled back their millage rate the past 4 years to keep these their revenue from personal property and real property at a steady rate, because they have rolled back their millage rates. It equates to roughly half of the total revenue collected by the governing authority for each year. So basically the taxes on your property equates to about half their budget for every year. And I believe, based off what the chairman was saying last meeting, that out of that 12.6, 11.3 million is actually state mandated. It's not an option of us trying to trim, of them trying to trim down some of that from offices or whatever. That's actually state mandated.
Well, we have a question.
Yes, ma'am, you have a question in the back? Name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, so what is the millage rate? That was for personal property, right?
Yeah,
Millage rate there. What?
The 808 one?
No, the last slide. But that was real. That was for real property. What's the millage rate for this for what we're talking about for the assessor's office?
Well, the the millage rate is the same whether it's personal property or real property.
Oh.
It's the same millage rate.
Enterprise rental cars have to go.
I apologize.
The only reason it would vary between property owners, the millage rate, is if you lived in an incorporated area such as the city, you would have an incorporated tax from the county, and then you would also have the city's millage rate on top of that.
Ma'am, what's your name?
It's Heidi. I'll talk to you after we're done.
We gotta have it for the record.
Okay, I'll give it to you.
Just to clarify, so real property is both like your property as far as your home and then possibly also like vehicles, is all of it?
No,
Or is it just your?
real property is just the land and the buildings.
Okay.
Personal property is your boat and businesses and your inventory.
Camper.
Your camper, anything that's tagged is taxed completely separate from this.
While
That's
we're on-
basically just tags when you tag it.
While we're on the question portion of it, I really want everybody in the room to pay close attention, back up one slide, to that slide right there. 2021, 2022, 23, 24. Familiarize yourself with, that is the actual taxes that was collected off of property tax. And notice that each year, when the Board of Commissioners has rolled the millage rate back, you will see how, I made a statement each year saying that we don't want to collect a penny more than we did the year before, because we're okay. And that's as close as we could get across the board on 17,000 parcels of rolling that millage rate back, because we were having to estimate that number. So when people says, well, I know the market is just out of sight and it's running off and the home values is so high, they are, but that's why we kept running the numbers back. Had we not run the numbers back, you would have saw a 21 of 12.46, 22, you would have probably saw around a 13, 14 million. 2023, you would have seen a 14, 15 million potentially, and so forth and so on. But that was us trying to help out taxpayers, because we're one of them too. We're taxpayers just like you. And it wasn't fair to, this is why the bill was created. There was counties in Georgia, and there was school systems in Georgia that did not roll the millage rate back. That's why this bill came to be. And it was clearly expressed through several senators saying why they done it. They didn't take into account for people like us that did do the right things, or the school systems that did do the right things. Gwinnett County school system's got an 18.87 or something, to that crazy number of a millage rate for their school system, even though they got a 20 mil cap. Madison County was 16.99 for 18 years. Today they set it at 15.25, because they again also was trying to roll back at the same equation that we were rolling back. Maybe not exact same numbers, because their debt to income ratio is a little bit different. And unfortunately, the Senate and House, they don't know 159 counties' budgets. They don't know the expenditures of each 159 counties. But creating this with a 3% cap, it would have made me feel a lot more warm and fuzzy if they said, look, we're going to pass a bill that's going to give a 3% cap, we're going to let taxpayers vote on it, and we're never going to mandate another thing on you guys unfunded. But the problem is they do. So if you cap at 3% and then they start adding mandates to you, like House Bill 295 that's up right now, is for all Georgia counties, is going to have to go, if it passes, we'll have to go out and create code enforcement. You know, we got code enforcement about 2 years ago to the tune of about $300,000. Well, now it's going to be a mandate that you got to have it, because if you ain't got it, they're going to let taxpayers sue the county government. So it's another mandate. So while they capped you, you didn't know it. You read the bill that was on the ballot, and nowhere did it say that in what you voted for. It was deep down in the pages. So I've heard a lot of people say, why can't you just live within your means? Why can't you just spend according to what's coming in? Well, you can't do that when the state mandates more cost on you. If they stop that, then we could. Absolutely we could. Now, I don't know if we'd be able to buy new vehicles or new ambulances or new police cars, because 3% is not going to keep up. And there's one more thing to add into this equation, and that's SPLOST. So we have a couple cities that's already voted. Carlton, didn't you all vote?
We did.
All right, so they're out. Culver, you haven't voted yet.
Voting Thursday.
Okay. So we're going to be not eligible for the SPLOST because of the cities opting out. And that's okay. I'm not blaming it. I'm not putting it off on the cities, because I think they've done the right thing. But that SPLOST that we were going to be eligible for was just a 1 penny sales tax. As Gary stated, the money's going to come from somewhere, and this was really a game of chase the peanut shell game from the state. That's all this was. It was a follow the peanut from the state, because the money's still going to come from somewhere. So they were going to let us have an opportunity to put a referendum out there to ask for a 1 cent sales increase. Well, we're already at 8 with eSplosh. So if we go to 9, the chances of voters, just this past year, there were 6 SPLOSH referendums across the state of Georgia that come up for renewal. 5 out of the 6 failed. And these are long-term counties that had SPLOSH for a long term. or for a long time. When those failed, it set a trend that says, okay, well, taxpayers is tired of paying high prices at the grocery store, tired of paying high prices at the gas pump. They don't want that extra penny. So we automatically knew floss was not a given for us to even get that. But even if we would have got it, as you would have saw by Gary's presentation, at that 5 mill rate that you're going to be at in 3 or 4 years, well, that 5 mill rate is about $6.6 million. 1.2 times 3 or 4 years, I'm around 6.6. Well, that floss won't bring in but 2.2 even if we got it. So we would start going in the hole again. So I would, just for future reference, for education, I guess you could say, look up a Proposition 13 out of California. This bill reads almost identical to it. It was written in 1978. Well, there's 58 counties in California, and I think around 32 counties around 1994 filed bankruptcy to the state. The state had to go in and bail them out. It's because of this exact same scenario. So what they done was they kept the property prices low, the land rights. They said, no, we like the idea of that. So they just took everybody in California that was on city water, county water, and they just made their water bills $400 a month. Kept your land prices low, they just jacked up your service fees. So the other thing is, about this bill that's really concerning is to know that it's forever. That's scary, to vote for something that's forever, that was done by lawmakers that have no idea about county government. Think about this. No disrespect to my attorney that's not here right now, he'll be here in a minute. But the Capitol is full of doctors, lawyers, attorneys, engineers, dentists, CPAs. I don't know that you're going to find one county manager or one commissioner or one chief appraiser or one tax commissioner in that Capitol. But they put this together and said, this is the best thing for you guys. But they have no idea because they don't know what our debt is. This Board of Commissioners, inherited about somewhere around $10 to $13 million worth of IDBA debt when we took office 4 years ago. See, they don't know about that at the Capitol, but you're going to cap my funds. I still got to pay that debt back. I can't do away with it. So I think we're seeing the reason you saw the House Bill 92 come out for the extension, for that extension of giving 30 more days, is there's this wave of people opting out across the state of Georgia. And the House sort of got it, and they said, okay, we need to give a little more due diligence period for turning in those documents, because a lot of counties sit at the last minute and then run out of time frame and they couldn't advertise. Just a couple thoughts on that particular.
I wanted to touch on a few things the Commissioner said there. The floss was presented along with this. We were never going to qualify for it. It was our understanding that Franklin County was already going to opt out, and including the city of Royston, which we have we have like 3 or 4 parcels that are in Royston that are in actually Madison County. So if they opted out, we wouldn't be eligible anyway. But there was some statements made about, and I remember a gentleman asked in the first meeting, I don't see him here, that I wanted to address, asking if it was going to cap projected growth or actually lose revenue. Well, it's been made from some senators and stuff like that it's only going to cap projected growth. It's not going to hurt anything with your current revenue, which I argue I'd argue that they don't even fully believe that, because they included floss in the bill. If it wasn't going to lose any current revenue, then why put a floating local option sales tax in there, where the sole option for that is to recoup any losses that you have in a millage rate rollback. And the Proposition 13 that was mentioned, there's actually new studies out that show it actually has had the opposite effect in a lot of areas where many of the counties have fought to get more industry and commercial in their county because they were losing so much funding that, like around your coast and stuff, it's just made some counties where there's very little homeowners and it's mainly commercial industrialized, which could change the landscape of the county too. One of the concerns is that if several people have asked, what's the difference between just raising the values or raising the millage rate? Well, raising the values, if that's what's indicated in the market, the values are what the values are gonna be, whether they're frozen or whether they're not. If you put it on the market, you're gonna get market price for it, whether you're in a freeze from the local. Just because you're frozen at a $200,000 value doesn't mean you're gonna ask $200,000. You're gonna ask whatever the current market is. The worry with that is, if the millage rate has to go up every year, if some of the surrounding counties have opted out and they have a much lower millage rate than what we do, you're not gonna be able to attract any businesses. You're not gonna be able to attract new homeowners. If I'm a prospective buyer and my target range is, I'm looking at houses between $400,000 and $500,000. I'm looking at one county, same houses, they're each $450,000. One of them I'm looking at in Franklin County that has a lower millage rate because they opted out. One of them in Madison County has a higher millage rate because they stayed in. If it's the same house and it's just coming down to Madison County has a 5 mil higher than Franklin County, which one am I going to, as a prospective buyer, I'm going to choose the county with the lower millage rate, which could cause, if you don't plan on staying in your home for forever, it could make it to where current homeowners aren't able to sell their properties. Because somebody could go to another county, get the same house at the same price, but have a much lower tax bill. So if you think about selling in the future, it may make that difficult as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I guess this is for you, Todd. Dave Ayton,
What's your last name?
Ayton, A-Y-T-O-N.
Thank you.
Okay, per this chart up here, right, you've managed that millage rate to keep the taxes low. If you stay in, what's this going to do to your chore of trying to manage that, to try to keep it under control? What's that going to do to your work?
That's going to be a tough one, just to be honest, and I'll tell you why. So the way House Bill 92, some of the recommended ACCD requirements, request to change is, what we said earlier, Gary said about the house and 5 acres, that's exactly what it's going to be. So if you have outbuildings, they're still going to get fair market value. This is the house you live in the 5 acres. If you've got 4 or 5 other things on your property, you're going to pay a premium price for it. The scariest part for me also, because there's multiple scary parts for me, and I'm not trying to be totally anti this, but if you own 25 acres and you got a house in 5 that's got a discount, but you got 3 outbuildings, you're paying full market value on it, and we're 5 years into this, and now we're up about 7 mills greater than we was 5 years ago. Your remaining 20 acres, while you save $400 on your house, if you're paying $1,000 more on the other 20 acres you own, you actually lost $600. So that math just don't work. And again, there is counties that this will work, and it will work very well, but it's not rural counties. And I'm scared to death for a couple of our partnering counties, because I talked to them today and or yesterday, and they're going to go with the will of the people, and they can't hardly pay their bills now. So I'm really worried about that. Now, metro counties, any county, Jackson County, perfect one, opting in. Have you seen Jackson County? Have you seen the industrial growth Jackson County's got? Have you saw Banks Crossing? All those are all good things. They'll be able to weather that storm, but eventually, because remember, this is still infinity, eventually they're going to outrun the growth in the industrial to where they're still going to have to come back and start raising the millage rates. It's just a matter of time.
So you got a lot of calculus to figure out what your millage rate has to be.
It takes a team of 5 people about 3 weeks of running numbers upside down and sideways just to get to this point. When we start factoring in the other 5 or 6 potentials in this, I would be very scared to put my name on that dotted line if this is what it's gonna be, and not come in either way over or way under, because you can't predict that. It will tie this Board of Commissioners' hands, I feel like. Now, I'm speaking for myself, because I don't get a vote. So when I'm speaking, please understand this is Todd speaking, okay? Because these guys get to vote, I do not. I don't want to persuade them, I just want to tell you how I feel. The tax commissioner's hands is tied if we opt in. On any county where he now tries to help people that's struggling to pay the taxes. And he tries, I mean, literally, you can come in and ask him, says, hey, I'm a little short, can I pay you installments? He works out something with everybody, trying to keep them in their home. That's why we have very small tax sales, if any tax sales. If we get into a situation where we're scraping for pennies, there won't be much help left to give. He's going to have to sell your home. He can't work a plan without plan with you. I'm just being honest. And I'm also scared of what it's going to do some of the seniors, you know, because this mill rate's going to outrun the value. We all know, while we was rolling that mill rate back every year, I said we're in an 18% inflationary rate or 9% inflationary rate or 27% inflationary rate. Medicare and Medicaid got a 6% increase on their check. That bothers me. Some of us can pay it. You think I got 2.56 acres, a house built in 2004. It was 2,500 square feet, 2 stories, so it's 12 and 12, so it's actually looks small from the road. And my tax bill was $4,819. 2004, 2005. Sorry, maybe in 2005 when I built that house. So it's 20 years old. I can't afford it neither, because that's one of the things that I've tried to preach at each meeting is I, just like you, am a taxpayer, and I don't like taxes no more than you do. And I've asked that to keep in mind. Any other question, please? Yes, ma'am.
I need to tell my name. Yeah.
We sort of think we know who you are, but...
Okay. I'm sorry, I came in late. I didn't know the purpose of your explaining, you know, the tax bill and everything. But, and I guess you're voting tonight. But I wanted to know, this is, because I've been to a couple of cities. I've been to the, I've been to one city, and I've been to the Board of Education. Their reason for opting out. Now, this is something that taxpayers voted on. And that's what they wanted. But my concern is, I have a couple questions that have 2 parts to it. And now that you brought up something else, it's got one more. So, for one, why do you think the taxpayers voted to pass this bill? What is your reason you think the taxpayers?
I'm the only one who can give a personal opinion, because I don't get to vote. And anybody that says on Facebook that I'm calling them uneducated, that's not true. But I will tell you, nobody understood that bill, including the people that wrote it and voted for it at the Capitol didn't understand that bill. On Wednesday, the 16th of November, we had a webinar explaining what the bill was supposed to be about, and voting started on November 15th on a Tuesday, and 379,000 Georgians had already voted on a bill that we just got briefed on the day after.
Also, Ms. Fortson, in that bill, what citizens voted on was the option for the board to opt out. That is written in, so when people say that they voted on that, they vote to give that option to their Board of Commissioners or the Board of Education.
Yeah, I read the bill.
So you were just asking for that. That's why you were talking about the citizens in general.
Yeah.
So you can also go into math, and we ran some math. There's 17,000 parcels in the county, 12,000 are residential parcels, 7,000 are homesteaded parcels. You take that math and you calculate out to the percentage of how the bill passed, then there's citizens who voted that don't own a homesteaded parcel, that it will increase their tax bill, and so it'd be a decrease to them, because you obviously didn't understand. I mean, I'm not voting for a tax increase for myself, so I think that that's kind of where we assume that there's some misunderstanding on some citizens' parts.
Well, yeah, well, I'm sure, well, I can, they wrote it, because it saw that they were gonna get a cap on that tax.
Yes.
Yeah, I think also it says in the, it was in the slideshow, where it was on the ballot, it says, for the General Assembly to provide by general law for a statewide homestead exemption that serves to limit the increases in assessed value of homesteads. I think a lot of people saw that and they were like, I live in the state, that applies to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I really just think it was intentionally or not, I think it was misleading.
Okay, so that's where my point is, where I'm going to the meetings, I'm understanding that, cities and boards are opting out because there was not clarity. So it's the same for the people that are opting out, that they don't have clarification, just like you're saying the citizens don't. So my question to you, a part one question is, why do you feel that you need to opt out? And I think some of the stuff I saw there, but I want to hear what the board is saying, why they feel that they're opting out.
So okay, I'm trying to help. So no matter what my feelings are about whether somebody understood something or did not understand it, no matter my feelings on how the bill was written, understood or not understood, there's one thing that's factual, and I said this in the very first meeting and the second. Math is the only true statement in the room. And when we ran the numbers, math-wise, obviously take the county to heart, or we would not have done what we've done trying to protect our citizens. We didn't manipulate the numbers. We ran the numbers and said, this is what it's going to take, and we won't be able to sustain but so long, and we're committed for infinity.
I'd like to clarify that a little bit. That was part of what, I think I mentioned that before, when I was thanking the Board of Commissioners. They asked me to come in and do a presentation. We're with the Property Valuation Office, and they asked us to run impact numbers on how it would affect the digest. They haven't actually voted. They haven't made a determination that they're opting out. The reason that they're holding these meetings is because the time frame that the state set is so limited that they have to do this in order to keep their option open in case they want to opt out.
Right.
So none of them have actually stated whether or not they're opting in or
Oh, no, I know that. That's what I'm asking the question. I'm saying if they opt out,
Part of the
what would be
confusion,
their reason to? I know they haven't made a vote because they got to vote tonight.
part of the confusion is in the advertising that we're required to give for these public hearings. It states that advertising language is given to us that we had to put in those advertisements that we are committing to option, or you're considering opting out.
Right.
There's been no statement, and I certainly have not made one. I want to hear from everybody before there's been no intent of planning to opt out before this process is complete. But the advertising that we're required to do, the wording of that indicates that we made a decision up front, and that did not occur.
The state mandated how that ad had to work.
Right, wording was given to us, and this has to be in the advertising.
Right, so part three is my one question, part one. So were you given the opportunity to, it was explained to you, were you given the opportunity that they said that they would make up your loss in other ways? If you stayed in this bill?
No, Ms. Madison.
Yeah.
This is a huge challenge that's been repeated at both the earlier meetings. The issue that we have at our level as a governing authority is the state has to stop mandating unfunded or underfunded bills.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially telling us what we can and can't do. Number one, we have a limited means. Let's get right down to it. Madison County is a poor county. We are. We do not have the business development nor substantial residential developments in this county to sustain the growth that we are experiencing right now. We have people moving into the county every day. One of the reasons is that is the reason. You know, that they're trying to get away from the Gwinnett's, the Barrows, the DeKalbs, the Jacksons, and I believe I could ask for a show of hands here. And most of the folks in here would not be a lifelong residents of this county, you know. But that is one of the core issues here, is unfunded or underfunded state mandates. And this is a huge example of that, you know.
And the only options outlined in the actual bill to recoup those losses are the FLOSS option, the floating local option sales tax, and a millage rate increase.
Right.
Are you a teacher? Aren't you a teacher also?
Well, I'm retired now.
Retired, okay, retired teacher. So here's part of that unfunded mandate. We mentioned it in the first meeting, I think, not the second. The state is now increasing the health care coverage for state employees. Now, the county only has 3, and they work at the library, but that's part of one of the mandates. We have to fund certain amounts for them, right? It's $9,600 for 3 people. The school board just took about an $8 million increase in their health care. That was a mandate that the state put on them. So if people really look, that's really bashed Facebook, that really bashed the school board, had just this much of an idea about what the school actually is mandated to pay, it'd be very simple to know why they have to opt out, just like the other 90% of school board. 183 school districts in the state of Georgia, and I'm probably going to guess that somewhere around 165 of them is going to opt out. I'm noticing now that down around Savannah area that has multi-region splashes down there, those schools are staying in, but all the rest of them's opting out, and it's because they have a 20 mil cap. Right. I'm not here to talk about them. We got about 8 minutes left. Any more questions?
Well, I had something.
Well, hang on. Let's give me see if anybody else first. Anybody else? Yes.
So if you opt out of this, do you have a backup plan for what you can do to help the people who do live here that don't plan on moving or don't want to? Because even though you guys have been rolling back the millage rate, our taxes have gone up quite a lot in the last 3 years. It's quite painful, and if it continues this way, people are going to start moving out, and people from, like, I don't know, New York, who don't care about paying $1 million and whatever in taxes and property values are going to move in, because I'm going to have to move to South Georgia where I can afford a house and their taxes, because it's the middle of nowhere and no one lives there.
Well, unfortunately, the South Georgia is going to be the same way we are. They're eventually just going to raise their millage rates too. Now, their millage rate may not equivalent the same as ours. Their home values there may not be the same as ours. But you got to keep in mind, we're facing a situation that was not created by local government or the state. It was created by individuals like you that sold your home. Where do you think the market values come from? When my next door neighbor says, "Hey, guess what? I just sold my house for $400,000 and wants to give me a high five," said I made $200. You really should hit him in the nose, because he just drug your taxes straight up because he overinflated his house, but yet somebody bought it and it caused the whole pool to change. So the depth in the water just kept getting deeper and deeper, but it was because of market sales. These people moving in here today, I get it, they're escaping Gwinnett, and it may be cheaper to live here, but when you pay $329 for a 1,400 square foot slab house that you knew 3 years ago was worth $189, you're creating a bubble. But the bubble is passed amongst everybody. It wasn't something the county done, so I can only offset so much of it. And we have done a good job offsetting of it, and you're right. I said this in 2024 when we adopted the millage rate for the 2025 budget. I said this may be the last year that we're going to be able to cut due to there's no meat left on the bone. Look at 24 is 12.6, 21, 4.66. It's not in a 3-year period. It went up $150,000. That's it. So I know that I'm so bare bones that eventually I got to go back up. There's no more cutting left to cut. So you're right, creating something. I've got some pretty good news for y'all that stay around the meeting. I'll do it in the chairman's report. But I'd like to still take any more questions, but I hope that helped. But yes, we've got to come up with other ideas, but cutting services is really the only other option you've got. at this point. But to cut which one? And who's gonna pay for that? Who's gonna pay the price of being in that cut? That's all I know. Yes?
Okay, I'm piggybacking over yours, because that was my second question. Okay, to help us, because if you opt out, helping us, the taxpayers, or the people, you have, what the other options to help taxpayers? Are you willing to write a referendum that is similar to this bill that can help the taxpayers, or because of the millage rate is based on your budget and the amount of taxes paying? So that's another way. Are you willing to?
Yes, ma'am.
How much is your budget you're willing to cut? Or the next one is, another way you could do it is helping other people. So what are those things that you might be willing to do?
All right. So I got 4 minutes before we start the next meeting. Go ahead.
No, I just want to say that you can obviously see that the board has done a really good job of rolling their millage rate back and rolling their budgets back. So out of $12.5 million roughly that's collected off of property tax value, 11.1 is state mandated that they have to spend out of that money to operate the county. We run a $24 to $26 million budget, so we can cut EMS, that's $3 million. We can cut sheriff's patrol deputies, that's a $1.8 million budget. We can cut the jail division, that's a $1.9 million budget. We can cut animal control, so if you live in unincorporated areas, or, we can cut that. We can cut code enforcement, maybe, depending on what the House bill does. There is a lot of things that you can cut, but is EMS and sheriff what you want to cut? Is there fire protection services that you want to cut? They can cut stuff.
And we got people that are coming that want us to increase what we do with the rec department. And I understand that's important, because our kids are important and all the stuff that goes on. We can't, if we start these cuts, how do we do that? So, we got to balance all that
But
stuff.
you can
We've done a good job.
You can write that at the local level.
Well, yes. So I'm going to hit down the last 2 minutes before we start our other meeting, because in 2 minutes we're going directly into the other meeting. Mike, if you want to go ahead and come up and have a seat, buddy, you're welcome to.
Okay.
The council's here. So you are correct. If we recognize that this is working for other counties, okay, we can create our own. We would have to take that into legislators, and then they would carry it on to try to get it passed for us. We can never opt back in.
Right.
The same as we can never opt out. I'm sorry. We can opt out, we can never opt back in, but you can create your own locally. A lot of counties already has that. There was a provision in this, if you already have one locally that's better than this one, which Chatham County does. The Stephen Day tax relief. And they're opting out only because the one they have is better.
Right.
But again, that county has a lot of revenue. Downtown Savannah, Port of Savannah, Hyundai plants.
So what do we
Those are the things we don't want to give up.
So we can increase, how would you increase our revenue? What are you willing to do to increase the revenue?
What am I?
Increase the revenue.
Well, here's the bottom line. This is the very, very, very bottom line. If we do nothing, if this board chooses to opt out, we do nothing, we still control how the finances look. And as you saw on that slide, it's pretty doggone good. If we opt in, we lose that control, and then we're at the will of just making up the debt, however we can make it up. That's the bottom line. Mike? Yes, ma'am.
But I'm hearing what you're saying.
Yes.
But I think what you're saying is that if you lose control, you can't get the money from you don't know where. But if you keep the control, you can't get the money from you don't know where. So
No.
it's like,
No.
that's what I'm hearing.
No. So if we keep control, we can raise the millage rate based off of our need, not
Well, we
want.
have the need, is what I'm hearing, right?
Potentially.
Okay.
Right now we don't, but it's eventually going to come because every day taxes go up. I mean, not taxes, our bills increase. Power bill, Georgia Power goes up another 10% tomorrow. Who knows? There'll be a need. A need that will eventually build up enough to raise a meal. So we'll need to go up a meal or a quarter meal or a half a meal. Now, if we lose the control to base our own opinion on whether we want a $250,000, $500,000, and go to the state, then whatever that cut number is, if we end up losing $1 million the second year, or $2 million the second year, then now we're forced to raise the millage rate. It wasn't an opinion to raise the millage rate, it is a force to raise the millage rate. Does that make any sense?
Well, as a new person in this county,
Sure.
My taxes will, I was looking forward to the homestead, right? And I'm coming from a place where I had homestead in Florida, where my taxes were exorbitant there. So I was looking forward to that here, and as well. And now and I'm not trying to be whiny or anything. It probably sounds like that, but but
It's time to start the meeting. There's a place in that meeting for the public to speak. I'm cutting you off, but we do have it.
Yeah, I need to start the other one, but we also have a place in there you can speak.
There's a place in the other meeting for citizens' comments. And we do appreciate the citizens' comments.
All right, so with this being said, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the.
So do you want anybody to give an opportunity to speak specifically in favor of and specifically in opposition to? Because all of this is just conversation and questions. So I have everybody's name, but I don't have what they are speaking to support or not.
Okay, so quickly, we have done this in every meeting. We have asked for a show of hands. If you feel like you would like for the county to opt in, we ask you raise your hand. If you ask the county to opt out, raise your hand. So we'll start off with a show of hands. Anybody? Huh?
Stay.
Yeah, stay. Well, we're already in. So show of hands for anybody who would like for us to stay in. Show. Okay.
What is your last name?
Ayers.
We're not going to stalk you. We're not going to
Yeah, I can't. Ms. Ayers?
Yes, Ayers.
Let me answer one question that, one thing I think I heard. We do have homestead exemptions here in Madison County, like I assume most everybody does. So that you do not lose. What this bill would do, it caps the value of the increase of your assessment. It caps the increase of that based on the criteria that are given in the bill, but the homestead exemption still exists.
So if you don't have one, please see Lamar Dalton.
Yeah. You do have to apply for it initially when you make your purchase.
But say yes. Say yes, not Lamar.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And this does not eliminate future homestead exemptions either.
Right.
As people move in, as properties change, or people decide to look for the homestead exemption if they've never applied for it before, it will still be available either way.
What this bill essentially does, or the bulk of this, it caps the increase in value of your property at a certain level. So the wild swings we've had in value increases that are market driven, that would be limited. But the homestead exemption still there and still in place.
That doesn't go away.
Does not go away.
It's like $2,000, so it's
Yeah, that was a big misconception that got started on the internet. Show of hands for opting out.
But can you put a condition on it?
I don't do that. Gotcha.
That doesn't work. I need everybody's name.
Oh,
So like, Ms.
Wait a
Heidi
minute.
Ayers spoke in opposition of opting out of 581. Everybody that raised their hand is voting, they're in favor of the Board of Commissioners opting out of 581.
Wait, can there be a condition on it?
No, ma'am, we don't get to do that.
This was a straw poll. It meant nothing other than to show the Board of Commissioners how the room felt. This is all this was.
The state don't let us give them a condition.
But I mean, in case y'all, I would like you to find other ways to,
Well, we're gonna try to find some.
okay.
That's what we're gonna.
I suggest you hang around.
I'm gonna hang around anyway.
Yes, sir.
David Carey, 76 Madeline Court. I suggest that you start with me, go across the first aisle, and then next aisle.
Yes, sir.
And I'm in favor of opting out.
Yes, sir.
I'm Carol Carey, and I opt out.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Hayton?
Eaton, A-Y-T-O-N.
Yes, sir.
Opt out.
Yes, sir.
Eliza Lee opt out.
Hobbs, Cynthia Hobbs, opt out.
Sonia,
Yeah, they can go over there.
Yes, I've got, Lee Mitchell and Michelle Cole.
Barbara Wilson opt out.
Tim Wilson, opt out.
Okay, that's it.
Bobby Smith,
Bobby?
out. Both of you in, and then Cynthia is in or out? Okay, okay, no worries. Just out of curiosity, how many people changed their mind or potentially swapped from what you may have thought when you voted originally? You sticking with your guns on how you voted? Are you changing or sticking with your guns?
I voted for the thing, but I didn't realize all the confusion and really how it was gonna make it more difficult for you guys to do your jobs and more difficult for you to keep the costs down.
Thank you, sir. All right,
Ignorance on my part.
so I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the public meeting and, reinstitute the normal business meeting at 6:15.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion, all in favor?
Yes.
Yep.
He said 6:15, so that means we're gonna take a 7-minute bathroom break.
Yep.
Clever. Almost thought I didn't hear him right.
No, that's fine.
Yes.
You gotta plan ahead.
I do want, seriously, I do want, if anybody can stay, at least for the first part of the next meeting, if you can stay for like 10 or 15 minutes, let me get through the chairman's report. You will want to hear that.
Are you giving us all a bottle of water because the water fountain?
Yeah, well, we had to cut the budget. Absolutely, young lady. You're welcome up to Florida. Which part?
Clearwater.
Okay. Yeah.
Freezing here.
Snow.
I feel like I brought away something. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your
This
bathroom
one?
time.
No, I wasn't going, I was just stretching.
Yeah.
So,
No, I didn't understand.
Just like they did in the sports, $3 million risk.
It's good that you're. Thank you. I like town halls, like people just think, well, there's been a pretty good run for the first one. Yeah. It's just something.
I found this thing about.
Are you?
So I never met you, Terry Chapman.
So, yeah.
We'll be all right.
We need a program here.
We've got it.
Exactly. That's wrong, but the first thing you want to do
They don't have to call.
Feedback.
To be honest, because there's always.
I thought they were doing something on our side. But, yeah, like, I just wanna know if there's like, if you're planning anywhere, you don't wanna go away, here's something you can do that your value is, I mean, it's probably or whatever, because I don't. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what the
I'm building up, two. You're welcome to come in anytime. I'm here every day.
Well, you know what, I'm so glad that she's going and doing it and enjoying the heck out of it.
You know that.
Well, that's the kind of thing. Well, you know, I have noticed there's a lot of people that work a lot of different places, but I can't do that where I work. They don't put up with it, you know, they just do not put up with
She didn't tell us everything sitting across.
You know, we're okay, we doing all right.
Yeah. I'm taking a $23,000 a month.
Like she's going to
You don't get you weren't called you were
You were the
The reason I haven't done it, there are several current we have those parts that are discussed. So if y'all want to send that study or something, yeah.
All right. Madison County Board of Commissioners, regular business meeting agenda, February 24th at 6:16 p.m. Please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Gentlemen, before you is a copy of the minutes from January 27th, 2025 regular business meeting, minutes from January 28th special call meeting, minutes from January 31st, 2025 public hearing, minutes from February 3rd, 2025 agenda setting work session, and minutes from the February 11th, 2025 public hearing. If you see no discrepancies in those, I would entertain a motion.
The minutes be approved as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Chandler and a second by Commissioner May. Any other discussion, gentlemen? Commissioner Adams?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
All right. We'll go straight into